It is Thursday, and it's time for another Locked On NFL podcast, and we have some big-time news to go over. Stefon Diggs inked a big-time contract extension with the Buffalo Bills. Did they make the right decision? And then we'll spin that forward and talk about three wide receivers who are set to get big-time paydays: DK Metcalf, Deebo Samuel, and A.J. Brown. Which one would you trade? Which one would you pay? And which one would you tag? And then finally, we'll cap off the show talking about team building philosophy. Would you rather go through free agency or have a ton of draft capital? We're breaking it all down on a Thursday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. Let's roll.
You are Locked On NFL, your daily NFL podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
NFL fans, it is another Thursday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast, breaking down all the biggest stories in the NFL in under 30 minutes. I am host of Locked On Titans, Tyler Rowland, here with my co-host from Locked On Cardinals, Alex Clancy. We're here with you every single Thursday, like I said, breaking down all the biggest news. We're going to be doing it free and available on all platforms, so make sure that you subscribe on whatever platform that you do stream. And thank you for making the Locked On NFL podcast your first listen every day. Alex, we are going to dive into the big topic from Wednesday, and it is the Stefon Diggs contract extension with the Buffalo Bills. It adds a new 4 years with $104 million of money, 70 of that guaranteed. That makes Stefon Diggs the fourth highest paid wide receiver in the league if you look at average per year, which is $26 million, only behind Tyreek Hill at 30, Devontae Adams at 28, and DeAndre Hopkins at 27. It makes him the second highest paid wide receiver in the NFL in terms of guaranteed money. I'm sure Devontae Adams is not happy about that, but either way, a big-time deal from Stefon Diggs. And when you look at the Bills, Aaron Rodgers loses Devontae Adams. Patrick Mahomes loses Tyreek Hill, but the Buffalo Bills make sure that Josh Allen keeps his dynamic number one wide receiver in Stefon Diggs. The question becomes, Alex, was it the right move for Buffalo to commit that much money to Stefon Diggs, or do you think they should have went the Green Bay, Kansas City route and gotten some draft capital back for a number one star, top five receiver in the league?
I think it was a home run. I mean, what Buffalo's doing, they've always been the neighborhood favorite team. They drafted their quarterback, who is the Brett Favre to Green Bay, of Buffalo personified as a quarterback. And now he's got his guy, and he's going to retire a Bill. Now, sure, this is probably going to be a 3-year or 4-year deal, not the extent of how many years he has currently on the contract. But what they've done in the last 2 years was give their quarterback $150 million guaranteed and just gave Stefon Diggs this contract. If you want to make things work for your stars, salary cap gurus and front offices make it happen. Now, they're not paying a running back a whole lot of cheese. Their offensive line isn't super expensive. Neither is their defense, even though they've got a couple bigger name guys on their defense. So it's not like, it's not like the Rams where they don't have a whole lot of cap space. But if you want to make it work, you make it work. And this is a home run. This is an absolute home run.
Yep, I agree, especially with the AFC being as competitive as it's going to be. And like I said, we saw Rodgers lose his number one guy. We saw Patrick Mahomes lose his number one guy. Buffalo sitting out and saying, hey, we have as good of a shot as anybody to win the Super Bowl this year. I believe that on Bet Online, they are the favorite this year to win the Super Bowl, at least to come out of the AFC. And what you don't do is you don't take that, you sign Von Miller, you don't do all of that and then let your number one wide receiver go. You don't trade him. I disagreed with the Packers doing it. I disagreed with the Chiefs doing it as well. So I'm glad that for Buffalo's sake, they kept Josh Allen's best weapon. And Cole Beasley is a free agent. I like Dawson Knox, but you don't know what you're going to get out of O.J. Howard. Gabriel Davis really took a leap forward. Isaiah McKenzie could be pretty good, but you can't go out there with your number one wide receiver being a rookie or Gabriel Davis or Isaiah McKenzie. You can't do that with the opportunity that Buffalo has right now to cash in and really win a Super Bowl. So I agree with you. I think it was the right move. They got him at the right market. I think he's a top 5 wide receiver. I probably have Diggs as like the 4th best wide receiver in the NFL, and they're paying him as such. So I think I agree with you. It is a home run. Great move by Buffalo to lock down Stefon Diggs. And yeah, like you said, that contract, he's not going to be on the Bills in 2027, folks. But this is a show of good faith to Stefon Diggs. We know that he's the type of guy who can get a little frustrated and make some noise. So to take care of this, nip it in the bud. Everybody else is getting their money. Give him his money too, and roll into the season with no drama for Buffalo.
Yeah. And one thing on top of all of this that makes this all possible, the Bills have a pick in every single round of the 2022 draft. So if they want to draft a wide receiver at 25, do it. If they want to do it in the 2nd round or the 3rd round, do it. This is a very, very deep wide receiver draft. And on top of all of that, nobody knows which wide receiver is going to be the best out of this crop. You can say, oh, well, Mel Kiper or Todd McShay or, whoever. Nobody knows.
Right.
Anybody could be the next Denzel Mims. It doesn't matter what they did in college, okay? It doesn't matter. If they wanted to, they could draft a wide receiver at 25, 100%, and have your guy for the future. The interesting dynamic to the other side, though, of this, Tyler, is like we're seeing wide receivers get paid more and more every contract, like a lot of money.
Yes,
we've seen running backs regress, and we've seen what wide receivers go. So is that going to make teams reach on wide receivers more now to try and find the next Justin Jefferson, to have control for 4 years in the 1st round with, a third of what Stefon Diggs is getting paid every year? It's not the quarterback scale, obviously, but it's not going farther away from it. It's going much closer to it.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. That really does kind of spin into our next conversations on the show. You're talking about guys getting to market and getting paid. Well, what would you do? Would you trade? Would you pay? Would you tag some of the big wide receivers that are getting ready to get big time deals like A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf, Terry McLaurin, and Deebo Samuel? Also, it brings us to our final segment. Are you going to go with more draft picks and try to build through the draft, or would you go out and sign a bunch of free agents if you had a lot of needs to fill? So we're going to continue to discuss all the big topics in the NFL before we get into our trade, pay, and tag conversation with the next crop of wide receivers to get their deals. Do want to tell you guys about betonline.net, your number one source for all your betting needs and sports information. Find all the latest sports developments, including this week's Masters Championship odds, podcast, and reviews for all the different leagues this season. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. Head to their website today or use your mobile device to learn more about all the trends and all the action. BetOnline, where the game starts.
Locked on NFL Thursday rolls on. Alex Clancy, Tyler Rowland, Locked on Titans, Locked on Cardinals, respectively. Thank you for making Locked on NFL your first listen every day. Free and available on all platforms. Okay, and be sure to subscribe to the Locked on NFL YouTube channel as well. So we're going to play a little game of pay, trade, or tag. We're going to bring up 3 wide receivers. We'll see if we can get to a 4th. Guys that are going to be ready to get contracts, one of whom, well, I guess 2 of whom, or 3 of whom have been all speculated to be in trade packages, none of which have come to fruition at this point. One Tyler knows very well. The other went to the same college as the one that Tyler knows very well. And the third is kind of the breakout star, a guy that doesn't really have a position. I don't like wide back. I don't like that. It's lazy. They got to come up with another position for Deebo Samuel. Let's start with him. If you're the 49ers, and there have been ties at least leaked through the media that the New York Jets were looking at him because he's going to get a big money deal. Do the 49ers want to recoup some of the draft capital that they lost while trading up for Trey Lance? Would you, if you're the 49ers, would you pay Deebo Samuel, trade him, or tag him?
Well, with Deebo Samuel, He's played in 38 games. I mean, in his second season, he only played in 7 games. So there are some injury concerns there, but he's got 167 catches, 2,598 yards, 21 touchdowns. He was first team All-Pro last year. He is a Pro Bowler. I think you got to pay him. He's too versatile. It's just too perfect for the Shanahan scheme. And I know that he did have that injury concern, but for me, it's clear-cut. Deebo Samuel, when you use him correctly and he's with somebody who uses him perfectly, is just a perfect fit between player and play caller. And quite frankly, I would call his position OP or OW, offensive weapon. I mean, that's really where it is. You call it OX, offensive X factor. That sounds a little, he's the ox. That sounds pretty cool if I'm not, mistaken.
Played in Oxford, Mississippi. I guess you can kind of go that route.
Hey, you know what I mean? But yeah, I like Deebo Samuel, and I would pay him his money, personally.
Yeah, I agree. He was the 49ers offense last year. George Kittle was hurt, and then even though he's looked at as a top-tier tight end, he gets hurt more than any other top-tier tight end.
Yeah.
Deebo Samuel looks like LeBron James in the backfield. Like, he looks like in NCAA football when you used to play those cards, like anytime you hit somebody, they would fumble. Like the cheat cards to win games. It's like everybody else shrunk and he stayed the same size. Like he is just, it shows how much bigger he is than traditional running backs. And, we saw Curtis Samuel do this in Carolina where you put wide receivers in the backfield. Kyle Shanahan plus Deebo Samuel. Yeah. Oh, that's true. That's maybe even a closer comp.
Yeah.
Kyle Shanahan plus Deebo Samuel equals touchdowns. And that's kind of, and it also elongates the curve for Jimmy Garoppolo, who some people think he's lesser than. I'm paying him too. Let's move on here. DK Metcalf. Okay, DK Metcalf has been kind of the 1A always to Tyler Lockett. It's always been the Russell Wilson and Tyler Lockett show, even though DK is more of a star, I think by a long shot, than wherever Tyler Lockett was at one point. Pay, trade, tag DK Metcalf if you're Seattle.
Well, for me, if you're Seattle, now we're talking about these players on the teams that they're on. It's not in a vacuum. Yeah. Right. On Seattle, for me, the clear answer is trade. Now, I do want to say DK Metcalf has been the most productive of these 3 wide receivers and clearly the most durable. He's played in 49 games, 216 catches, 3,170 yards, 29 touchdowns, All-Pro second team in 2020, Pro Bowl. But I'd trade him because if you're Seattle, they can lie to themselves all they want. But they are rebuilding. They need to rebuild. They let go of Wagner. They trade Russell Wilson. If they're telling themselves right now that they're not rebuilding, then it's a lie. They need to look themselves in the mirror. I would trade DK Metcalf to the New York Jets and try to get the number 10 pick. I think that is the clearest. The Jets are like a homeless man on the street. Wide receivers, please. Could you spare a wide receiver, please? Like, every rumor is just the Jets. Can the Jets? Because they're desperate. It's obvious they're desperate for a wide receiver. And I think that they want a vet wide receiver star, not a rookie. Because I think they want to make Zach Wilson as comfortable as possible now. And they're probably going to get rid of Corey Davis after this season because he was never worth that money, ever, even close. So you got Elijah Moore, who is a small, shifty speed guy. If you had DK Metcalf, that would just be the perfect combination for Zach Wilson to throw jump balls and a big physical receiver. So for me, if you're Seattle, get that number 10 pick, stock the offensive line and the defensive line, get back to winning in the trenches, and then you can build out from there. But they're not winning anything substantial this year, so why would you pay a big-time wide receiver a bunch of money? And DK, just my personal feelings, I don't really like him as a teammate. I think he's pouty. I think he doesn't show a lot of effort blocking when it's not his turn to get the ball. And for my own personal reasons and Seattle situation, I would trade DK Metcalf. What say you?
I mean, over the course of time, big-time wide receivers aren't necessarily required to do things when the ball's not coming to them. Ask Randy Moss. Okay, so I get it. Not everybody's going to be Cooper Kupp and Larry Fitzgerald when it comes to blocking, but I kind of take that with a little bit of a grain of salt. I'm trading him also. I tweeted this out. I've said this since the beginning of last season. If this doesn't go well with Seattle, they're trading everybody. I was right about Russell Wilson. They should trade DK Metcalf for a first this year and a third this year, or a first this year and a second next year. It's one of the two. You give the third, you want the pick this year, you get one less, you get a little tax. If you want a second. If you want it next year, take a first this year and a 2 next year. Start
and it makes
the hell
sense for the Jets too. The Jets have 2 top 10 picks, so take your guy at number 4 and then get
or
DK with
Philly.
10.
I mean, there's so many teams that have draft capital that this could work for. Yeah, I think he's a star. He's going to be a star, and you need somebody with a cannon to because he's one of the best big play threats in the NFL.
Yes.
So it can't be like a run first offense where you come in like going to, I don't know, Baltimore is a bad example because Lamar Jackson's shown that he can kind of throw the ball down the field a little bit better as of last year and the year before. I know we're not going to talk about that like we did last week, but it needs to be a guy with a cannon who can throw the ball down the field and really open up what DK Metcalf is capable of, like running in a straight line and doing all the things at the combine that people thought weren't going to translate to the NFL. Stupid. Third one, another Ole Miss product, A.J. Brown, who's missed a lot more time than those over in Tennessee would have liked to have seen. This was the most heated conversation, especially in your parts, surrounding if A.J. Brown was going to be a trade, a trade asset for another team.
Right.
And you never read into it. I'm going to let you take the stage here. But because of his injury concerns, and even though he's shown flashes, he had his breakout year last year, pay, trade, or tag.
Well, okay, so number one, there are injury concerns there, but he's played 5 more games than Deebo Samuel. He's played 43 games. He's got more catches than Deebo Samuel, 185, more yards, 2,995, and 25 touchdowns. I mean, A.J. Brown is a touchdown maker. He's got 1 Pro Bowl under his belt. Now, I want the Titans to pay A.J. Brown. I do. I think he's the MVP of their team. So I want the Titans to pay A.J. Brown. But when I originally set this up, the way I was looking at it is like F, marry, kill. Trade, pay, or tag. You had to choose between the 3. So what I'll do is the Titans are going to pay A.J. Brown, and I want them to do so. But what I will say is if we play the game of trade, pay, tag, and you can only use 1 assignment for each player, I am trading DK Metcalf, I'm paying Deebo Samuel, and I am tagging A.J. Brown. So I want him to get paid, and the Titans will get a long-term extension. But if we're playing F, marry, kill with trade, pay, and tag, A.J. Brown is the guy who gets the tag for me because he needs to stay healthy. He played in all 16 games his rookie year, but since then, he hasn't been able to do it. And he dropped in the draft a little bit because people were worried about the knees. I think he's a superb player, a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL right now. But if I had to play the game, I would draft or I would trade DK. I would pay Deebo. I would tag A.J. Brown. So your final thoughts playing F, marry, kill with trade, pay, and tag. How do you assign each thing to each player?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think A.J. Brown, you tag him and he'll be happy because that dollar amount for franchise tag for a wide receiver is going to skyrocket compared to what it once was.
Yes.
Okay, so everybody will be happy with that scenario. Chris Godwin got the tag. And then, unfortunately, got injured last year, but he got his contract extension as well. He should have from Tampa Bay. Yeah, you pay Deebo Samuel because he is their offense. Sure, they've got the running game. They lost Raheem Mostert, etc. But you pay him. You trade DK Metcalf because I feel like Pete Carroll's going to be gone. I feel like John Schneider's going to get fired. Like I talk a lot about Steve Keim and the Arizona Cardinals. John Schneider has no business being the GM of the Seattle Seahawks anymore. Yep. I don't understand it. All he did was just jettison that franchise over the last handful of years. You can follow
so many missed first-round picks too.
Yeah, well, and trading for Jamal Adams, like it was just like it was just a huge cluster over there. Corbin Smith NFL on Twitter if you want to get all your Seattle Seahawks news. And then tagging A.J. Brown, he's going to get over 20 mil. It looks like. So I don't think it's not going to be like I want that extension. He's going to get $20 million for 1 year of employment. And I feel like that's a lot better than the 13, 14, 15 it's been in recent years.
For sure.
So I think everybody's going to be happy there.
Who is the first to market is the big question for me, though. Which one of these 3 wide receivers gets their deal first? If I'm the general managers of these teams and I want to keep these guys, I'm trying to get the deal done before any of the other
draft.
Done. That too. I mean, whatever you got to do to be first to market on these, because none of these guys should get paid as high as Diggs. They shouldn't get $26 million a year, and they should all get higher than DJ Moore, Mike Will, and Chris Godwin, who got paid $20 million.
And Christian Kirk too.
Well, yeah, whatever. So I think that Deebo, DK, and AJ need to be in. Terry McLaurin, you could throw in this conversation too. They need to be in that 23, 24, $25 million range. And I would want to be the first to market as a GM and try not to compete with the other deals that tier of guys gets.
Yeah, and we're going to try and make this next segment as objective as possible, one or the other. It's not in a vacuum conversation, but would you rather have your team build through free agency and lose out on some draft capital, or make trades, etc., to have a bevy of draft picks going into any said draft? Do you trust in the now or trust in the excitement of the unknown of the future with draft picks? Tyler Rowland of Locked On Titans, Alex Clancy of Locked On Cardinals. We're going to hit that next. Locked On NFL.
NFL fans, we are going to cap off this Thursday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. We talked about the big Stefon Diggs contract extension in Buffalo. We talked about the 3 wide receivers that are looking like they're going to get paid big money contracts next and what to do there. Now we're going to cap things off with kind of a roster building philosophy conversation. So Alex, what I want to do is, this is Alex's topic. This third topic you guys can always count on. It'd be, some crazy, interesting, and fun discussion. But here's what I want to say. I want to add this in. Would you rather your team, the people listening, think about your team. Would you rather your team build the roster by acquiring as many draft picks as possible? Think about a team who's going into a rebuild like the Seahawks, are getting rid of some of their guys, getting more draft picks in, trying to have 12, 14 picks in a draft to build up a roster for a couple of years in a row while getting rid of veterans? Or would you rather go, let's say, the Los Angeles Rams route? Let's say sign a bunch of people in free agency. You're going out there and spending money, but also you're trading draft picks to acquire veteran players. So would you rather kind of go the Los Angeles Rams route of things, or would you rather go that Kansas City Chiefs route of things where you're using your draft picks, you're finding Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, Patrick Mahomes? Well, not perfect examples, of course, because every team is a mix of both. But I guess the conversation is, which route do you think would be most fruitful, acquiring as many draft picks as possible or going big game hunting and free agency in the trade market? Alex, I'm excited to hear what your opinion on this roster philosophy question is.
Well, if I'm talking about the Arizona Cardinals, I want Steve Keim to have 0 draft picks. I would like it to all go through free agency, because there's 2 different schools of thought here. One, you take the proven entity, you take the proven entity, the player that you've seen play in the NFL, or you're trusting your scouts and your front office to make the clear distinction. This is the person that will make our team better by drafting them at whatever pick you have in whatever draft. I'm always taking the former. I don't care about the future. I care about now. And like for Seattle, it's a little bit different because they have a bad team. But I'm always looking at, that cap is malleable. Okay. It's not a hard cap, even though it technically is. You're able to make things happen now. The dummy years has become a huge thing in contracts, and transferring salary into signing bonuses. Like, there's so many different ways you can manipulate the cap. Give me the players I've seen play in the NFL and perform. I take that 1,000 times out of 100, because that with performance that you've seen already replicated for your favorite team far outweighs the volatility of draft picks. There is not one thing that is more overblown with importance than draft capital in the NFL. It blows my mind.
Okay, well, with that being said, I'm going to totally disagree with you. I want the draft picks because it's a value conversation. When you get guys in free agency or you trade for somebody, you're paying a premium price. You're paying the highest price possible for that, unit, whatever you want to call it, for the product. For me, I think the best way to create value and look at Tampa Bay when they won the Super Bowl 2 years ago. They hit on rookies, Wirfs, and Antoine Winfield Jr. I mean, they hit on some rookies, and that put them in position to really win the Super Bowl, having contributing rookies on contracts, because there is no greater value in the NFL than a high-level rookie or a high-level player on a rookie deal. Let's say that. So for me, give me 12, 14 picks. I call it the Baltimore Ravens philosophy. The Ravens during my childhood, it seemed like they always had a million picks. They always hit on picks. Now, like you said, the risk is the evaluation. Because when you sign somebody as a free agent or you trade for somebody, someone else did the evaluation for you and you can see plainly what they are. So there's more projection in the draft picks, but it's a cost analysis. I'm going to pay a lot for what I know. I'm going to pay a lot less for what I don't know. But for me in the NFL, I would rather go the route of drafting guys, trusting my evaluation, and looking to get cost-effective players on rookie contracts, making big contributions. Of course, any team is going to have a combination of both, but if I had to load my roster with one or the other, I'd rather load up on cheap value players and hope that you get a couple of hits, half of them are hits or whatever, because then you have the most valuable asset in the NFL, an all-pro level player on a rookie contract. There's nothing better than that. So I would take the opposite position, of course, and go with draft picks, but it's a good discussion either way.
3.3 years is the average employment span of an NFL player. I'm taking what I know over what could be 100 times out of 100. And let's just, before we get out of here, because it's almost time, we know now, it's with almost 100% certainty that once you pay your quarterback a fresh new contract, you ain't winning a Super Bowl. Okay? The thing with the shelf life of a rookie scale contract for a quarterback specifically is so rare to end up in a Super Bowl from what we've seen over the last 20 years, thank you, Tom Brady, that I'd much rather build known entities around a good to not extremely great quarterback. Look at what San Francisco's done. And say what you want about Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford was not a top 7 quarterback before he got traded. Okay? He went to a great situation with great players around him and a good head coach. Les Snead was going to get fired 6 years ago. Okay? He's not been a world beater forever. He was just able to make moves, traded for Marcus Peters, traded for Jalen Ramsey, re-signed Aaron Donald, brought in some veteran guys. I'd much rather have that elixir than I hope these draft picks work out 4 years from now when they're ready to succeed at an NFL level. 3 years from now, maybe 4 is too many. But I get both sides. I think it's also because so burned as an Arizona Cardinals media member to see the general manager of the Arizona Cardinals draft supremely poorly more times than not.
Wait a minute. Hold on, my phone's ringing. What? Los Angeles area code. Hello? Yeah, Les. Nice to talk to you. What's that? F them picks? Alex is the GOAT? Oh, okay. Yeah. All right, fair enough. All right, see you, Les. He's with you on that. But
I know.
Either way, yeah, like I said, interesting discussion, and we've seen examples of teams doing it both ways. But that's going to do it for this Thursday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. Make sure you subscribe on whatever platform you do stream. Be back here on Friday. Chris Carter, your boy Q, breaking down all the biggest stories for you. But we will be back with you guys next Thursday. Either way, hope you all have a fantastic night and enjoy the weekend.